This week in the Scale Room.
One of our customers was in a mastermind group with maybe 20 people, mentioned that she was using us on a call, and we got 7 inbound leads from it. But it's like, how in the world do you go and either be proactive about that or try and systematize it? Because it's so trust-based, right? So that's something I've been kind of like noodling on that I haven't figured out.
So I think the trick here is not, finding all of those communities and infiltrating them, but it's turning your users into your advocates. This week in the Scale Room. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Scale Room. Today in the Scale Room, we are going to be talking about a special product for me personally, because I happen to be the ICP. So here I have Bailey Darling and his product Gia, who in my own words, I would describe as a GTM co-pilot for consultants and boutique agency people. And Bailey has a very impressive stat, at least from where I stand. Basically, he told me in the previous conversation that they're able to close, guys, 1 out of 3 sales calls. Like, I know all of you listening would probably sell a kidney for that type of closing rate. So, Bailey, what brings you to the Scale Room, and tell us a little bit more of the origin?
Definitely. Well, yeah, I was super excited to connect with you, Olya, because obviously you're our ICP, but a lot of the stuff you guys cover on the show is super top of mind for us. So one of the things that, we are, struggling with right now is this top of funnel problem. So a 1 in 3 close rate is awesome, but it's like, how do we get more at bats with our ICP that I've found kind of searches for tools and buys tools in a very unique way? And then to give the high level of Gia, we started Gia probably just over a year ago. So we're in the 0 to 1 stage right now. And as you said, it's a platform that's really purpose built for boutique professional service firms, consultancies, agencies, the type of firm that live and grow through trust, their relationships, referrals, and then usually come to Gia when they realize, hey, that has a ceiling, or we want to make that a bit more systematic. So the long-term vision of Gia is to be almost the OS for these agencies that want to start, run, and grow this type of firm. Right now, we're super focused on that growth pillar. So the biz dev, the content, stuff like that, and happy to dive deeper there. But that's kind of where we're at today. And one unique thing there is, I think that, and I could be wrong, I think there are so few companies and tools building for this group, where some of the things I hear is like, well, I have to try and fit into, HubSpot, which is kind of for sales teams. And then, this other tool, and I end up duct taping together 12 different things just to make my, agency run. So that's where we're at today.
So I think what would be interesting is basically going back to the way I discovered Gia, which was an introduction actually for the show. And then when I was looking at Bailey's background and then the tool, I was like, holy shit, like it looks like I need it. I had no idea it existed. Because the problem that it solves for me is that I have an enormous amount of calls, whether it's one-off consulting or all the sprints that I'm running, plus all of the sales calls in between. And one of the top value propositions for me is that it would then convert the content from those calls into content that I could just push out on LinkedIn. Like, that's a massive value add for me. Now, full disclosure for everybody listening, I haven't yet figured out systematic pillars of my content, because it's been a little bit of a trial and error. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you know it. I've tried a little bit of everything. So, and I'm I call myself a SaaS tool junkie, especially in my full-time role. So I would just try a bunch of tools. Now I'm a little bit more modest with that, considering, it comes out of my own pocket and not somebody else's pocket. So, but would that be like a typical discovery process for you guys?
Yeah, I think that's super common, because one thing as a founder is you are wearing so many different hats. You're spending 60-70% of your time on discovery, and then you have to think, well, if I do that, it's going to create this feast or famine cycle if I'm not spending time on biz dev and doing the content stuff consistently. So I think, to your point, one of the reasons that feature, or that, teammate specifically works so well is, I guess, twofold. One is, as an agency owner, what you're selling is essentially your unique IP, years of experience packaged in a way that solves bespoke client problems in your unique way, which we thought is super, super cool. And the idea for the content agent actually came from maybe 12 months ago. Somebody in just a casual customer discovery interview was like, you guys know Gary Vaynerchuk? He essentially has a content team following him around all day so that anything prolific, insightful, anything like that he says, he knows the very next day is going to be repurposed and distributed across all the relevant platforms. And we're like, let's just do that for agencies. So that's kind of where that came about. But yeah, very similar.
Let's ask you this question, which I have been thinking about since the original conversation. Are you sure that your only ICP is the agency owners?
That is a good question, because right now the current platform has kind of 3 AI teammates, and obviously the content one that you've talked about and that you've seen is relevant for most early stage founders that want to be active on LinkedIn specifically, that do founder led sales. That's typically very relationship based. The reason we built that is because it got a ton of traction. It's a super quick win for people, going into the platform, but it is relevant for people outside of our specific ICP. I always like leading with that almost as a caveat of like, hey, we are building this platform long-term to be very specific for the professional services space. So we have some like SaaS founder friends who use it for their LinkedIn content and stuff like that. We use it especially on the LinkedIn side, but long term, we really want to be focused on the services space, specifically around client delivery.
So when you say we want to be focused on that, is that because you see it as a massive opportunity, or is that just like, let's call it a conscious choice that you're making?
Yeah, I think there's a massive opportunity. It's a huge growing market. I think that there's any company right now has this AI tailwind of like, hey, I'm going to go try these different tools because I know in order to stay competitive, I need to be more efficient. That's especially pertinent for service firms that essentially sell either their time or outcomes. I also think it's a massive opportunity in the sense that, and tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like agency owners, because they wear so many hats, have so many different problems in their business that they need to deal with. And that makes this more of a platform play in our mind, as opposed to a specific feature that somebody can kind of vibe code or build in-house. They need the full stack of, a teammate that helps them with biz dev, helps them with content, an AI account coordinator that supports the delivery side of things. So it was a very conscious choice going into it. It was also very conscious where my background is actually, B2B tech sales, worked at some startups. We actually wanted to stay away from that market, interestingly enough, because I think that is where most companies go to build. It's, these VC-backed startups that have all the budget. So we wanted to stay away from that for now.
Okay, let me ask you this question. So when you say consultants and boutique agencies, are you focusing more on just like one person business, or like give me like a rough split?
Yeah, I don't know if this will exclude you from our ICP. Olya, we started off with kind of everybody as a startup would. We didn't really know our ICP, so we took on fractional executives, solo consultants. A lot of them still use the platform, but I find that they churn out more quickly. Some of them go and they just get full-time jobs and they're like, hey, I don't really need this anymore because I got an offer. Our sweet spot and what we're moving into is agencies size 2 to 25 employees, typically between like 1 to 5 million in revenue. Super sticky. They get their teammates on the platform. It scales really well as the agency scales. So that is the ICP I would say we've more recently been doubling down.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking is because as a very conscious user, you see, I'm not even onboarding because I know I'll probably churn because I would end up not using it because I'm so, as you have rightfully identified, I'm so overwhelmed that I'm like, okay, like even though I'm struggling, at least I know what I'm struggling with, if that makes sense. And I think like in the way I see it, like the one for person business fractionals, etc., that's probably not the right angle for you because those people, well, their attention is extremely hard to get like anywhere on the web. And they're probably like the highest churn potential because these are the people who, if they're not getting the maximum out of the platform, to get that in mind, actually you need to have some sort of a system already in place. Because basically what the tool does is it replaces some manual process, right? What I'm doing on Claude today, I could be doing a lot faster on Gia. The problem is I'm still not sure what I'm doing on Claude. I've been just kind of testing it out. And I think this could be kind of like, a scoring opportunity for you. Now, when you say, the slightly bigger teams, even though you still qualify them at a starting point of 2 people, which is still quite small, right? This is still people really just delivering either those two co-founders or maybe somebody who just hired the first person to help out. Where do you see, and you'll see where I'm going with this, where do you see the most active usage and maybe also people on annual contracts versus the month to months? Oh, you don't have annual contracts, right?
We have a couple annual contracts, people who are just like, cool, let's double down, and we give them like a discount on it. But for the most part, we'll either do month to month. We've also been moving into 3-month proof of concepts because we are super, super hands-on. So we have probably about 100 agencies on the platform right now, and we still do everything one-to-one. So it's like, we'll do the onboarding, we'll do bi-weekly check-in calls, shared Slack channel, all of that good stuff. More selfishly than anything else, it helps us learn having that close proximity to the customer. That probably totally didn't answer your question.
Yeah, the question was who, like, do you have a specific cohort where you see like the highest usage of the product, and where they also, maybe if you have, interviewed them like midway or something like this, who said, oh my God, cannot live without it today?
Yeah. So outside just like firmographic data, it's like, sure, the larger agencies, maybe, they've started hiring their first role. That's one of the reasons we're doubling down on that ICP. But I have found outside of that is super busy founders. So, Gia links up with your calendar, and it's like, you can see, okay, this person has 25 calls this week across internal, vendor, client calls. So they're super, super busy. And the other part is kind of a mindset where they are empire builders. So we have some solo consultants that are fantastic power users. One, because they're super busy. Two, they have this mindset of like, I am going to scale this into something larger. Maybe I'll stay solo, but I'll get to, $1 to $2 million a year. Or I know that I'm going to start hiring for roles once I, nail down X, Y, and Z. So we stay away from, I would say, the solo kind of fractional consultants that are more like, it's kind of a lifestyle or like a stopgap between jobs. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking this is because basically for the top funnel to work better, you need to understand what is basically the thing that gets the foot in the door. Because I think for me, it was not like when I first opened your website, granted, I didn't like stumble upon you. It was an intro. I was like, interesting. But the thing that really got my attention was the whole, host content type of thing. So I think you have to basically understand. That's why I'm asking about the usage. And then my next question was going to be, okay, what's the feature that's getting used the most today? That's foot in the door. That's what your whole top funnel should be focused on. As in, when somebody gets excited about a single feature, you can get them on the platform, and then you can expand them to other things that you have, because it's a lot easier to sell one single thing, like one solution to one problem, versus saying, oh, and we have this and this and this, and then all of a sudden it sounds like a Chinese buffet rather than one simple solution solving one problem. So do you have a trend like this? Is there like a champion feature?
Yeah. And that's such a good point. It's something that we've honestly been struggling with, where it's like we're trying to fit in. We have an AI teammate, we have a business development teammate, we have an AI account coordinator. And it's like we're trying to have one landing page or website sell all three of those. Previously, Outbound had a super low response rate, probably for that reason of like, we can do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Bar none, the content agent turning calls into content, your calendar, whatever. That's our most used feature. Super high usage, power users are using that. So recently I've started using that as almost like the wedge, to your point, where it's like, I will focus on that when I do my outbound. The landing page will be much more around that, so that when somebody shows up, they're like, hey, that thing got me super interested. And then I can kind of just be like, and additionally, we have X, Y, and Z, which are relevant for you. But that is something that we were not doing well previously. It's like the positioning of everything and really trying to sell the full package in like one go. That was, looking back, you kind of think like, how did we let that go for so long? But I think we're starting to see, an uptrend in kind of response rate and things like that by focusing on that single thing.
So what are the channels that you have tried so far, and what is the one that is giving you like consistently the best conversion today?
Yeah. So definitely wanted to talk to you about this. We've been doing the standard founder-led sales stuff. So LinkedIn organic, so obviously the content stuff, and LinkedIn outreach is our, I would say, primary acquisition channel or proactive acquisition channel. We've also been doing email outbound, which is working pretty well. We have tried Google Ads, which didn't work that well for us. They were super expensive. My co-founder actually ran them, so I don't have super granular insights there. We are starting meta ads. Those are just being set up right now. But interestingly enough, the one like where most of our deals come from is actually referrals and word of mouth. And it's this really weird problem to solve, something I wanted to talk to you about, because I think I'm realizing, and how you've talked about like how you stumbled upon Gia, agencies and consultancies don't search for tools in the way that SaaS founders might, where it's like, if I need something, I'm going to go to Google and be like, best AI tools for X, Y, and Z. And then I'll take a demo and do that. Consultants and agencies are so trust-based in how they get business that I think they buy tools in the same way, which is, I heard about it in a community, a friend, in a mastermind group. And a really like pertinent example that happened just last week is one of our customers was in a mastermind group with maybe 20 people, mentioned that she was using us on a call, and we got 7 inbound leads from it. But it's like, how in the world do you go and either be proactive about that or try and systematize it? Because it's so trust-based, right? So that's something I've been kind of like noodling on that I haven't figured out.
So I think the trick here is not finding all of those communities and infiltrating them, but it's turning your users into your advocates, empowering them to do so. So I mean, flawless hanging fruit is a formalized referral program. Do you have that in place?
We do. We've kind of just given it to people when they ask for it. Of like, hey, do you guys have a referral program? I want to send somebody your way. One of the things that's literally on my to-do list this week is we have product tracking, obviously. And we know that when somebody hits this wow moment of like, you have a call, it generates a really great piece of content and it's high quality enough for you to click post. As soon as somebody clicks post, in our minds, it's like hits that magic moment. They get put into a sequence, or it gives us a trigger of like, hey, go ask if they want to be part of your referral program. So literally setting that up, hopefully by end of this week. Is that kind of like what you're thinking?
Yeah, this is like the no-brainer. Like if you have a product that is already appreciated by people, this is something that could really bring you significant results very quickly. It has to be like very prominent. A lot of times, like when the product has grown too much, it's like it's become non-prominent. But if you imagine the precedent where somebody is already being super vocal about your product, why not incentivize them? So that's the first one. And the second one is, so you're mentioning all the ads, but I'm thinking more like, okay, what are you actually, what's the content that you're using for the ads?
It's going to sound very rudimentary. We looked at a few kind of, not like direct competitors, quasi competitors, people who are in a similar space selling to professional services, looked at their ad library and pretty much gave it to our designer. And we're like, hey, can you make these ads for Gia? So nothing revolutionary there.
I would say this is where a playbook from HeyReach would probably be super handy. I think what they have done exceptionally well is creating this whole like educational aspect, as in let us bring in people who would teach you how to do outbound and will also in the meantime produce shit ton of content around it. Then I think they used to do like webinars and stuff like this, where one really cool outbound expert would share the tricks, etc. And then it would become the how do you call it, like the evergreen content on the website. They will also churn it through LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. So the one thing not even organized by them, I mean organized by them, but not generated by them, was producing this like, a myriad of different things. And any sort of user generated content where the tool is just being used by someone else is like, the highest trust, to go back to your point. As in, I want to see somebody legitimate who has already used the tool and has gone even far enough to do a freaking webinar about it or live, that gives you immediate credibility, as in this is a real tool used by real people. And they're making the whole community effort around it.
That's such a good point. I think we have kind of the inklings of that with a different experiment we ran, and I guess are running. Have this power user and he happens to have this like agency community of, I don't know, maybe 200 plus people. Essentially what we said is, obviously these LinkedIn posts are for the most part being thought by the user, but generated and structured by Gia. And we said, hey, for anybody that pretty much does some little tag at the bottom of a post of like thought by me, powered by Gia, something cheesy like that, where like we will like sponsor the ad or run a thought leadership post and drive visibility there. So great for us because you're kind of shouting us out. Also great for you because we're increasing your visibility. So we haven't done that at scale. Like we've done it with, I would say, a handful of posts, but that's actually generated some demos as well.
I would also like, it makes me think of the TikTok playbook where, they had the watermark and like the ending clip and the end of it, as in like if you can actually generate clips from Gia, that's a low hanging fruit, like put on the small watermark or like the ending that says, created by Gia. Obviously, give people the option to disable it if they want to, but most people will never do it because they don't really care, right? I do a lot of stuff in Riverside and I don't care about the watermark being on it because I actually like the tool. Like, I don't mind people knowing that I used this exact tool.
Okay, 2 questions based on that. One, what are your thoughts on TikTok as a channel for somebody selling to this group of, boutique professional service firms? Like, do you get tech information from TikTok? Like, what are your thoughts on that as a channel?
Let me hit you back with a question. When you say, because it's a very large group, boutique agency, do you work with like certain specialties within that large consulting group?
Yeah, no, fair question. I would say most of our customers, probably 60 to 70%, are in the marketing services. So across like digital, SEO, paid, whatever. Handful in HR and recruiting, and then also kind of leadership and management consultant, I would say, are like the handful of verticals.
Okay. So I'll give you my perspective, which is probably going to be shared by a lot of other people, but there is a hypothesis that you can very easily verify with the user, just like, SQL Server or something like this. I personally only consume like comedy content on TikTok and Instagram. And I know, like, I follow a lot of product-led accounts who only produce comedy, but the product is top of mind for me because they do this like skits or something else that is like really funny. So, and it's relatable because honestly, it just like validates the pain that I live through every day, like dealing with egomaniac founders and stuff like that. It's like you have to, I think this is where you basically have to ask the same question to your user base, as in like when you go to channels, to like video forward channels like Instagram and TikTok, do you consume certain type of content? Like, are you going to be looking for educational content? For anybody with 15 years of experience like me, God, no, I would never like consume any sort of educational stuff on TikTok and Instagram. If I want to educate myself, I know specifically what I'm looking for and I'm going to go talk it out with Claude, right? Like I wouldn't be doom scrolling on Instagram hoping to see some cool stats or something like this, Sometimes it would get my attention. Somebody would be, I don't know, throwing some interesting stat out for example, about VC funding or something like this. Never in a century I would actually follow that account. I'll probably like it, but that would be, the end of it. But comedy, really well done comedy that makes me laugh and entertains me for 30 seconds, I'll follow that account because I would want more of it. And now, of course, I'll check it out who's producing it.
Interesting. So the follow-up to that is, the old advice of nail one channel, focus on that, get really good at it, etc. Versus, run a bunch of experiments with a hypothesis of, if we achieve X, then we can, maybe automate this and kind of keep it running. As I said, we have, I would say, 2 channels we control: LinkedIn outbound / content, email outbound. One we don't control, referrals, word of mouth. That is awesome. How do we, how do you recommend people go about running these experiments, figuring out what channel works versus just being like, we're going to nail this one and just focus on?
Honestly, considering that you already have a significant user base, I would just go ask them that question. As in like, how do you actually shop for tools today? Like where would I be able to catch your attention? I mean, obviously, depending on the channel which they came from, you will have to calibrate it, but that's the best exercise you can do. It's like, there is no secret sauce to it. It's like, take it out of their own mouth. Because I'm sure divided by cohort, as in, say, for example, management consulting companies that are about 10 people, they'll say one thing. Marketing people will say different thing. I don't know, some sort of sales consulting would probably say something else. There would be similarities, but what you have to ask is, okay, which channels do you even hang out on? What type of content do you consume on those channels? I mean, rule of thumb is, educational content on LinkedIn, funny or, aspirational content on Instagram and TikTok. And like thoughtful stuff in newsletters, right? Because a lot of people, I get some of my content from newsletters. So that way you can calibrate what is it that you want to get out of all those channels, but also pay attention to the goal of a channel. Because, LinkedIn could be like a pretty straight way to getting the person to the pipeline, whereas TikTok and Instagram would still be more like brand awareness, if you will. I will probably recall the names of the apps that I'm following, but it doesn't mean that I'm in their pipeline, right? It's like when the time comes and I remember about the app. So it's more like, this is more like long-term game. So you have to calibrate your whole strategy based on where is the low-hanging fruit versus the long-term game. Depending obviously on your runway and whatnot and the capacity. This is the third lens that goes over it as in, okay, how much can I afford efforts into the long-term thing when I need the immediate results? So down to numbers at the end of the day.
That's definitely a balance top of mind for me right now, where it's like, obviously, we have lofty MRR goals that we want to hit. So it's like, yeah, I want to pound the channels that can do that and get that quickly, but also need to think about the stuff that takes longer. So the SEO or, trying to, I think, like you mentioned, one of the most human sources, or the sources that LLMs from a GEO perspective are prioritizing a lot, are YouTube, Reddit. I think recently they started indexing LinkedIn, which is great. And again, I'm no expert, so I could be totally wrong on this stuff. So it's like, how much time do we put into those longer term plays that take 6 to 8 months, which is, well within runway, which is fine, versus the immediate ROI of how can I just get more MRR at the door quickly?
Exactly. I think the first exercise that you need to do with that is just look at your existing customer base and see if there is an expansion opportunity. As in, okay, if somebody's sitting on our content agent, can we upsell or cross-sell them to the other agents? It's like, again, treat everything as the same form of exercise. Where can I get the low-hanging fruit versus the long-term result? As in, how much can I get from my existing user base? There is always more money to squeeze from your current customers. You just need to go through them and basically forecast what can be done. And again, if you're really struggling for cash right now, it would mean, okay, what is my real runway? Not aspirational runway with some aspirational goals with whatever investors are asking for.
Yeah.
What is the real number? What is the real cash burn? What is the growth rate that we have experienced in the last 12 months? What has this been mitigated by? Because it goes to the macro level forces, as in, okay, most companies that are hiring those agencies are now hiring them because they don't want to hire in-house. Is this post-COVID tailwind, whatever? It's you always have to look at it at two levels, right? Because those people that are paying you need to make money too somehow. So are they making more money today because the market is changing and they're getting hired more? What's happening? You also have to understand their motivation is what's keeping them up at night. It's obviously your product is not solving existential problems, but kind of, especially if you're going for this whole as infrastructure for boutique agencies type of thing. And your whole strategy needs to be developed based on that. It's okay, how can we get closer and closer and closer to our customers' wallet, and how can we make their lives better? Because it has to be a win-win, right? It's not oh, let's just upsell them on a feature, but maybe they'll churn from that feature 3 months from now. No, how can we realistically make their lives better? Because in my experience, the biggest difference I see between companies scaling and failing after the first million is creating the product that people genuinely love.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a core tenet of just having a maniacal focus on product and providing as much value as we possibly can. I will say one thing I'm very bad at, to your point, is the whole upselling expansion. There's so much potential. We have, a ton of really happy customers referring us business, power users. And it's almost in my head, as a thank you to them and their support, I don't want to be hey, you asked for this specific feature. We have it. It is, this much extra. I have this bad habit of being for the support you've given us, I'm just going to give you guys that for free. I probably shouldn't say that on a podcast, but I'm that's something I'm super bad at.
I mean, this is a bit of a coaching moment, because this is honestly something that I have struggled with personally. I would always over deliver just because it feels good, but in reality, and you don't have to respond to this and take it with a grain of salt. For example, mine is coming from the fact that I think I'm not good enough, as in this is something that I work through, etc. I've had this raging problem of constantly thinking that I'm just not good enough, not valuable enough. So I would give a lot of upfront value. I would literally even, I don't know, say on a discovery call with the client, I would already give them all the hacks and tricks and tips and blah, 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 just to prove, that I need to be in that room. And when I finally pattern spotted, let's put it this way, and walked myself back to where it started. Trust me, it was not in one sitting. It's an issue that could hurt you in the long run. Because if you tend to over deliver, overperform, etc., like you said, you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table. It's an objective thing to say. It doesn't make you a bad guy if you upsell the customer on the feature that they will realistically benefit from.
Yeah. And it's probably something that's really valuable to pressure test, where it's like, is there a handful of people that are going to churn? And it's like, what value are they associating to Gia today? Like, is it a no-brainer to double your current spend because you're getting, X, Y, and Z? Or is it like, you're like, I'm already kind of at the cap of what I think I'm getting in terms of value from you guys?
Exactly. That would also, like, one more exercise that I would suggest to you is also already depends on like conversion rates that you're getting, A, from the website, and B, from the messaging that you're using in the outbound. Are you using the right language? Like, are you speaking their language? If the conversion rates from website and cold outreach are not so great, it might also be worthwhile to go back to customers and be like, hey, how would you describe Gia to appear from an agency? They'll give it to you in their own language, which could also like crack another thing for you.
Yeah, that's an exercise we did when we were starting to run the Google ads.
Okay.
Where we would interview customers. We would essentially go and ask exactly that, what problem is Gia solving for you today? How would you describe it? How would you describe yourself? Which helps us with kind of, language around positioning and targeting. And then things like, what is the bad alternative to this? It's like, oh, well, it's doing it manually. It's hiring an expensive ghostwriter. So that was a really helpful process. But, I think the data is just kind of sitting somewhere in a Google folder. So I should go back to that.
And ask Claude to crack it, obviously, it's like if you have batch data, it's always good to run it through an LLM, but you have to like ask it already specific questions, because otherwise it will give you like a very, surface level analysis. Let me ask you this probably final question, then I'll give it back to you. So from the companies that are using the product today, how many of them have, like, let's call it, passported it throughout the teammates? If it's like 5+ person team.
In terms of like, you start off in an agency, you have the founder using it. How many have brought on like additional teammates?
Yep.
Yeah, good question. I think we recently did this. It's probably around 20 or 22% that have expanded seats. So typically it's the founder that gets on board, to your point, with the wedge of content. And that's the thing that gets them excited. The other part is actually business development, because, we lean very heavily on your existing network. We essentially have an agent that sits on top of it. So they really like that. The founder and maybe the partners start using those. And then interestingly enough, the expansion typically comes because they don't have a ton of people doing business development for them. It comes with them bringing on either their content marketer in-house to be like, hey, use Gia to post content for either the whole team or the executive team. And more often than not, recently bringing on account managers where, we can compile all the information in one place, help them follow up, deliverables and things like that. So that more recently has been kind of the expansion play, though I haven't really been as proactive as I should be about going to these agencies that I know have the teammates and be like, hey, by the way, this is something that could support them.
Yeah. So you see, that's like expansion opportunity number 2. Not just like upselling them on features, but also on the seats. And this is where you just need to go, to boring math forecasting to see, okay, how much can actually squeeze from the current customer base, which would be my growth budget that I could spend on something else. So that would be the line of thinking that I would recommend to you.
Such a good point. That's, as I said, something I need to definitely get better at and be more proactive about.
Yeah, but understandably, as a founder, you're dealing with the same issue.
Exactly. The always persistent imposter syndrome.
Exactly. All right. Do you have any other questions that you wanted to dig through?
We mostly covered everything that was top of mind for me. This was super helpful. Like I don't know if you noticed, I was writing down a bunch of notes as you were kind of, explaining the experiment. So all to say, this was super, super helpful.
And one more thing I call it like experiment hygiene. Every experiment should have like multiple things attached to it. Obviously, the understanding of the goal and how it's going to be measured, whether there is like a lead and the lag metric, and also let's call it like a cliff, as in, okay, we're really going to give it 3 months tops, but a cliff is going to be a month and a half. And if at cliff we're seeing like super little results, as in we're not even close to 50% of what we're going to do, this is where you have to make a decision. Because basically where a lot of money and effort is wasted is letting things run too long, thinking, okay, oh, this is probably going to kick in soon. No. And this is where, either a professional or at the very least, Claude can help you in terms of benchmarks, as in like, okay, you should really give it X, Y, and Z time, and this should be your cliff. Without it, your experiments are just, again, going back to, Chinese buffet. It's like just plugging through multiple things and hoping something would stick.
Completely agree. Yeah, that's something we've actually gotten a lot better at, where it previously was like, okay, let's run this experiment. And we don't outline like, well, this is our hypothesis around it. This is what success looks like. This is if it's only here, this is where we kill it. So we've gotten a lot better at kind of doing that in a more formulaic way. So yeah, completely agree.
My final signature question, which is just more like personal rather than product related. If you could go back in time to yourself, so Bailey, 5 or more years ago, what is the one thing you would have said to him from where you stand today?
Good question. I would say one of the things that I've always kind of lived by is, I probably won't walk into a room and be the smartest person there. The one thing you can control is how hard you work. So it's like always aim to be the hardest worker in the room. I'm sure that is consistent across, agency founders, SaaS founders, things like that. So go into a room, try to be the hardest worker, really control the controllables, because so much of it is going to be external circumstances that really affect your life, your business, how you're doing. But it's like focus on the things you can control. The other thing I'd probably say 5 years ago is, maybe buy Bitcoin.
That's a good one. I personally yeah, I'm looking at it today and I'm like, okay, I'm too late now.
Yeah, I don't even know what it was at 5 years ago. Maybe that's bad advice. I don't know if it was like 60K or 100K 5 years ago. Who knows?
Maybe that was like a little bit longer than 5 years.
Yeah, maybe 10, 12 years ago.
But I think the hard work is a really fair point, because at least you've done it, right? It's like nobody can judge you on that.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, what is it? I don't know, 90% of startups end up failing, things like that. You got to be a bit crazy to try it. And it's like at the end of this success or failure, I want to be able to, hang my hat on the fact and say like, I did everything in my control to make this succeed. If it doesn't work, so be it. I can live with that. And if it does, it's like, I, deserve to be here, that kind of thing.
I think that's an awesome closing statement. Okay, the real final question. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you and try Gia?
Yeah, I'm super active on LinkedIn. I think the / is literally just Bailey Darling. And then the other part, if awesome. Yeah. And if you, want to check out Gia, website is getgia.ai. Me and my co-founder, we still, take all the demos, do all the onboarding, super close proximity to the customer. So if anybody's interested, of course, hit us up. And if you just want to kind of chat about, what's going on in the space, I'm always happy to do that too.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bailey, for being super open and curious.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time. I feel like I got, a lot of things to go and kind of experiment with and try out. So it was my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you.